overworked, and underutilized is probably the description of most organizations we work with and work in. In some sense, the power of what I want to talk to you about today around purpose is how do you solve that dilemma? Because that's really the biggest challenge that we all have. You know, when we created this originally, purpose was a poor pauper. In some sense, there's only one purpose that will fit you, and it is like the slipper of Cinderella's. And when you put it on, the prince will come. It happens to be the integration of what happens as a result of getting clear on your purpose. Jostein is the CEO of Ben & Jerry's. When he came and did the course with me, he discovered that his purpose was to make the impossible changes that really matter, fun and achievable. Now, his MO, what he discovered when he was in the course, is that he'd taken job after job after job, and they were always ship job after ship job after ship job. And the way he turned it around and transformed the business was by people having incredible amounts of fun as they did it. Okay? You will be laughing within seconds of hanging out with this guy. Now, what he also realized is it's stuff that really matters. And he was at the end of a 2-year cycle of being CEO of Ben & Jerry's, and he was destined to ascend to the next level of heaven and get this big promotion and go to one general management job where he basically would be overseeing other people doing real work. And he decided to go back to the CEO and say, I'm not taking it. This is my purpose, and I'm living it where I am right now as CEO of Ben & Jerry's, and I'm staying for the next 5 years. Now, in some ways, all of this led Scott Snook and I to writing the HBR article, which really sort of summarizes our insights around the journey of what does it mean to have purpose and why. And in some ways, the why does it matter and what is it all about? And what's interesting is when you look at the data, is incredibly compelling that employees of leaders who have clarity of purpose are deeply impacted positively as far as their performance, how long they stay, what they do. Now, this is not a surprise to any of us. Now, if we then look at research on 32,000 employees around the world who have sense of meaning, people who do have a sense of meaning, 3 times more likely to stay at the organization, 70% higher job satisfaction, 40% more engaged at work. So if you think about it, you have 2 companies. Now, I don't know which companies you guys work for, whatever, but the reality is the difference between you and your competitors isn't as big as you probably think it is. You all have your install base and the customers that like you more or whatever, but the reality is probably not so big. But if you had one organization that has clarity of meaning and they're getting this kind of an outcome and the other one doesn't, which over time do you think is going to be more successful, right? This is not a hard question. Compound interest. We even take this to the level of you as an individual, and the research shows that if you have clarity of purpose, you have significantly less chance of experiencing the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Now, what's interesting is if we cut you open at the end of the day, I know that sounds really scary to think about, you will have the same physical lesions as those people who exhibit the symptoms, but you won't actually have them. Purpose is really amazing. They've even got research now I saw, and I was like, really? That shows that you have a 30% better chance of living if you have a purpose, no matter what your age is. I have no idea how they figured this out. But there's probably fewer things. I don't know of anything else you could buy or vacation you could take that would have more positive impact on yourself and everyone around you than having clarity about what the purpose is for why you're here. Listen, if you can be fired from it, it's not your purpose. Do you know what I'm saying? How many people have come to me and said, my purpose is to work for Samsung, to help them? And I'm like, great, but if you get fired from Samsung, what's your purpose now? Right? Or if it has anything to do with your job or your title, well, I promise you at some point in your life, that ain't going to be you. I really believe that your purpose should be true when you're 102 as it is now. Michelangelo has a wonderful metaphor. He did not chisel David into the rock, he released David from the rock. And the other stones, he released from them what was there, and it was just an arm and a leg. This is what purpose will do for us. It will bring the deepest passion out in us again. Look, this is what we want to step into all the time, is if we're not crying and laughing, then what are we doing? We're sort of, so this is the magic that purpose brings for us. And if I look at leaders and I look at, there's a famous teacher of actors in New York in the 50s and 60s, and he worked with Marlon Brando, Steve McQueen, all the great ones. And somebody once asked him, they said, did you know? Did you know they were going to be who they became? He said, pretty much within about the first 6 months, you know. He says, here's the thing. To be a great actor, you must do two things that are impossible to do on stage, that when you do it, you will always be the best. The same is true for leaders. You have to be both strong and vulnerable at the same time. And Cynthia Montgomery does a lot of work at Harvard Business School, and her view is the same as ours, which is purpose is the only thing that doesn't change. And it redefines the strategy over and over and over again, and it's the only thing that you can stand on. The question is, do you know what it is? Look, if you have two similar products, and one you have an emotional connection to and the other you don't, which are you going to buy? Right? So where's the magic in what the organization does and what's it doing? The question becomes is, what's the beautiful, compelling, emotional, connected message that your organization creates for people that has them connect to you because it makes them feel better? If your organization disappeared tomorrow, shut its doors, if you were the Circuit City in your industry and you shut your doors tomorrow, remember Circuit City, most of you? When they shut their doors, were any of you deeply distraught? Did you just go across to Best Buy and continue? Or Amazon? Now, the real question for every organization is you have to answer this, and it has to be unique. It has to be something that there would be this great gasp. How long would it take, and how difficult would it be for other people to finally replace you? Bank of Singapore was the original bank created 50 years ago to help fund the growth of Singapore. It's now basically a bank like any others all over Asia. And here's their purpose. And if any of you fall off your chair, it's okay. You ready? Making banking joyful. So story goes as follows. I'm in the room. I got the CEO and the whole group. There's a group about this size. So they said, let's make our purpose is to make banking joyful. Their commitment is to transform banking in the world, period. Their purpose is to make banking disappear. You only feel it. You never have to see it or touch it. And they have gone on a crazed adventure in the last year. I didn't see them for a year. I came back, and the amount of things that they had done, they got rid of all the lines in all the banks. They put cash machines out for the Chinese New Year because everybody had to exchange, get rid of the old and bring in the new. So they put machines everywhere for 2 weeks so people could exchange their money. And the CEO never was involved in any of this stuff. And he was like upset and pissed that he didn't know about it. And everybody's laughing hysterically saying, well, that's part of the problem, is we at the top have to let go of thinking that we have to come up with all the good ideas. Because the purpose is like run through the organization, and people, when they think about is what we're doing making banking joyful or not, people have no problem knowing the difference between what is making banking joyful and what is not. Just like a strategy for an organization needs to be aligned with a purpose, for you as an individual, we've talked about some of these beautiful purposes you have, and the question then becomes is, how do we dramatically increase the alignment between your purpose and what you're doing day to day?